Okay,
Well, thank you.
so we'll go ahead and start with
Um,
you.
well, I'm about 39 years old and I've lived in the Washington, D.C. suburbs for a very long time, probably 30 years. And I've always been interested in charities and nonprofits just because I'm interested in fundraising and kind of giving them advice. And I've helped with a lot of community stuff through some different churches that I sometimes work with. And I wanted to start a charity called Empower Her, and a men's version of it could be Men at Work, so that the men don't feel left out. And I wanted to have one wing of the charity be a for-profit business, and another wing of the charity will be the non-profit traditional charity. So it's kind of like when Walmart sets up its own charity or foundation, you have the business part for capitalism and you have the nonprofit. And I wanted to focus on job training because we have a lot of unemployment all around the world, but particularly in America, because of automation, robots, artificial intelligence, and finding ways for businesses to be more efficient and cut costs. And so if people can get job training, they can be more in charge of their income and their ability to work or even own a business. And a lot of people say, well, why don't people just go get job training? It's expensive, it costs money. You require a support system in order to uh, complete your job training. You kind of need your own social worker to finish your job training. And that's what I want our charity to do, to address the issues of women and maybe one day both genders, so that people can actually complete the job training and get over the finish line. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Angela. I'm going to open it up to the panelists, to your subject experts, and I'm going to start with Lewis.
Thank you, Angela. Love it that you're looking to establish job training and programs for women to empower them. Definitely needed, and appreciate that you're taking that on. You mentioned a for-profit and a nonprofit wing and looking at both of those. Maybe first, can you walk us through how your programs would operate, what would be involved, and then we can come back to the nonprofit and for-profit area.
Yes. Well, one of the reasons why quickly I wanted to do a capitalist sort of wing of the organization is I think, like when you look at Amazon and Walmart, if you do have money coming in, it's easier to finance and sustain your charity legally and ethically. So that's one of the reasons why that came to my mind. Also, sometimes when people get their job training, especially women, they can work at home, they can be in a detached single family home, and they can have a good income and a steady income and contribute to the charity and pay it forward and mentor the younger generations to get them on the right path as well. And what I was thinking was we could take 4 areas of careers that women have are good at, but also that women would need going into the future to stay employed or own a business. So I would teach the women about allied health. Sometimes you go into the office, sometimes you work at home. I could teach them about legal studies. There's different job titles you can have with legal studies, and you can be self-employed. I was going to teach them about information technology and cybersecurity and some of those Silicon Valley tech skills. So that's the third area. And the fourth area I was going to teach them about is virtual assistant. And those come with fancy titles like executive assistant, office manager, secretary, business office administration. And so I could work with the women who graduate as teams. You have 4 different teams, and each team would get into one of the 4 areas, and we could provide professional services and consulting to the local area and the world, have money coming in, and some of that money can go to the charity. Of course, there's other types of jobs that women can do, but those are some of the most important jobs in this day and age that are very sustainable. And they're digital nomad jobs too.
So when you're describing the 4 different areas, would they fall under the I'm a little unclear as to where the
Well,
for-profit and
what happens is, excuse me, what happens is the nonprofit is the job training and working with existing job training programs. Once you graduate from the nonprofit, you're going to kind of pay it forward and pay it back to the nonprofit by working. You can be an independent contractor, a freelancer. I'm not really into the idea of employees. So you've graduated through the nonprofit, then you'd come over to the for-profit side, the capitalist side. You'd be working, you can work in your own house, you can work in a co-working situation, and some of that money that you make is going to go back to the nonprofit. It's a way of having kind of knowing where you're going to work, how you're going to work, putting what you've learned to good use. Yes. I find that a lot of women like those types of jobs as opposed to other jobs.
And then would the for-profit fund in other words, from a funding standpoint and a strategy standpoint, how would the 2 different legal structures, how would they be funded? And then what about the strategy behind each of those 2 areas?
Well, I do know some nonprofit and charity lawyers that are pretty reputable that can help you get set up correctly, and that's very important. There's some fiscal sponsors. There's a organization in Maryland that helps sports athletes set up their family foundations, and the foundation doesn't have to be generational. It can just be when the athlete is active and working before they retire. So there's people that help you set up your structure. And I do want the charity to be financed by the for-profit capitalist side, but I believe that you have to have more than one source of funding. You can have a charity shop where you sell items that are popular that are retail, like kind of like a Neiman Marcus. You have money coming in, you do the fundraising. When people are surfing the internet and they're clicking on widgets or links, or they're using a search bar, you can make money that way. So you don't just want to rely on one source of funding for your charity. I just want the women to take the job training they have and put it to good use and make it possible for the next cohort to get job training.
So basically, the for-profit side would be a job contractor. You know, basically, you would work with companies. You know, I keep going to headhunter, but it's not quite that. It's not that way. But that's the parallel. There are a lot of for-profit temporary agencies or job placement agency. That's basically what your for-profit would be, and all the people who worked for you would be people who graduated from your nonprofit training side. Do I have that right?
Well, the thing is, it's going to be a little bit of recruiting and headhunting. Some of the people that will work with us will be our graduates, and some of them will be from the outside. They don't have to be with us. Sometimes they graduated from job training that they paid for themselves, or they come from another state or another country, and they can still work with us. The ladies that graduate with us are allowed to go anywhere they want to work, and they can be totally self-employed and earn their own business or own their own business, but we're just giving them one option of many.
So Angela, I think, obviously it sounds like you have not only experience in the fields that you're talking about to be able to think about that, but also have given some real thought to, what we normally call diversification of income and ways of revenue. And it makes sense because some of what you're talking about really doesn't necessarily fit into the context of what is considered charitable, and setting that structure up certainly makes sense. just so we have a bit of a sense, because there's a lot of partnership involved in this, because you're talking about, I think, what Lynn was touching on, which is if you have a cadre of people who are ready to do the staffing work that you're talking about in this contractual work, obviously there's the business development side of that. On the nonprofit side, and sort of you talked about the helping the navigation, sort of case management support for women. What's your sense of sort of the scale? We oftentimes, what happens in this, we see you and we don't have a sense of who else is also involved in this, in terms of being able to support potential scale, or sort of where you're drawing your expertise to help support that the job training side of components. So maybe you could tell us just a little bit about that, of sort of how you envision that running and with whom.
My charity is brand new. It has not gone through the lawyer process yet. It has not been incorporated or set up. I do have a mentor in Maryland who works with a lot of churches and a lot of charities all over the world. And he comes from my background. He's also Nigerian, and I'm Nigerian and half a Black American. And he's given me a lot of good advice, and we've talked about a lot of good ways to do fundraisers. I would like to start out in the Mid-Atlantic area and then eventually go global, because there's a lot of countries where women need to work at home, like Saudi Arabia or Iran. They can't really work outside of the home for a variety of reasons. So I'm thinking global eventually, but you have to take it one step at a time. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I've lived in the DC area for a long time. I found out about nonprofit villages through public television, PBS, and I check up on the website every once in a while.
Yeah. So if I were to just follow up, and I think it's, again, a wonderful vision of sort of how you can be in service. And I'm curious, just as you're thinking about the startup, because sometimes we need to also focus on, like, what's the day-to-day look like? So as you think about, launching this, because you are really at the front end, can you share a little bit around really sort of the nuts and bolts, what it would take, particularly on the nonprofit side, around where is it that you're looking to initially start to recruit people? What does it look like in terms of how you envision being able to serve them, in terms of what your sense is of what it would take to serve that? Let's just call it the first cohort of women that you'd be working with.
Well, the thing is, the first thing you have to do is use a charity lawyer to set yourself up correctly. And then you have to have your accountants, and you have to have maybe a fiscal sponsor for the first 2 or 3 years to give you guidance. You need mentors. And it's not that hard to work with community colleges and job training centers that already exist and are already doing a good job. And you have to find kind of like a building where you're going to be. That's not that difficult to do. There's ways of using direct mail to reach women. You can call career centers at community colleges. You can get out into the community and let people know that you're available. You can reach vulnerable populations like the wives of military or active duty or veterans, or homeless, foster children, adoptive children. There's a whole list of women that could use job training, including women that are in college. So there's ways of reaching out to people. It's not so hard to do, but it does take funding, and you do have to write down your plan and kind of follow your plan. So, it's kind of like organizing a wedding. People say, oh, how do you do that? It's been done before. So you go through the steps. Once it's written down, people at least know what you're doing. And that's kind of how you do it. And you do want to start small. You want to be kind of the DMV area, then Mid-Atlantic, then national, then Canada, Mexico, then you can go international. So, and churches are important. Synagogues are important, houses of worship. And there's a lot of people involved in philanthropy that you can kind of lean on.
So Angela, you have a really good sense of, a lot of the pieces that are involved structurally. The question that I think is a really important one is putting those things into action is oftentimes much more challenging. There's a phrase in the nonprofit world. We talk about wicked problems. If there was a simple answer, it would have already been figured out. Part of what we have is the challenge of navigating systems that are not particularly clear cut or easy. Like, even though it makes sense that you would just do A, B, and C, actually making A, B, and C happen can sometimes be tricky for folks. And so I'm curious for you, whom it is that you're talking about, or whom it is that you see bringing in to help start to build those various capacities. Because again, you have a good sense of what's required. The key question is, what does it take to actually now engage and start to put those together? And whom is it, particularly since you're at the very front end of this, thinking about whom is it that you can talk to help start to build those pieces that you're going to need?
Well, the first thing you have to do is reach out to 5 philanthropists. Like, if you were going to start a charity that revolved around farming, Warren Buffett has a son, I think his first name is Howard. He does a lot of farming all over the world and coming up with solutions that will actually work in different countries and regions. So if you go to a philanthropist, they have the money, the funding, the financing, but they also have the knowledge and the know-how. And even if you are new or incompetent, you can, say, oh, I need your advice, I need your mentoring. That'd probably be the first place you would start, because charity takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of experience, and it takes people that have the right level of sophistication and connections to do it. Colleges and universities are a very good source of making sure that you have the right information and that you take action. And of course, in Virginia and Maryland, we have organizations that help charities like Nonprofit Village or Federated Charities. And there's just an abundance of organizations in Alexandria that help new nonprofits, but fiscal sponsors are very, very important. And I know there's some in Maryland that are very good.
Angela, want to get an opinion from you in terms of what questions do you have of us? What is it in terms of either your next steps, either in terms of funding, strategic planning, board development? What questions do you have of us as a panel?
My first question is, would anyone here have experience with being a fiscal sponsor to actually set up the structure? And would my first charity lawyer be pro bono?
I can answer that. Nonprofit Village does serve as a fiscal sponsor to organizations. There is a 1-year contract and there is a fee involved. All monies that come through us that we take in, we do take a percentage, and we pay out all of your expenses on your behalf. One of the things that we always recommend is, if you're incorporating in Maryland, it's different if you're incorporating in DC or Virginia, because I don't believe there's an equivalent organization, but Maryland has Maryland Nonprofits, and they have a division, a legal division that takes care of all of your incorporation in the right way. And there are attorneys, there are nonprofit attorneys that do that work. It is not free. They charge $1,200, and that program gives you your articles of incorporation. They work with you to establish your bylaws and all of the documents that you will need in order to register with the state of Maryland, as well as to submit your 1023 or your 1024. I guess you're doing a C3 to the IRS. and they see everything through for you. And then once your determination comes through from the IRS, they will go back and file for your charitable registration, your sales tax exemption, blah, 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 blah. So it's $1,200 plus the cost of what it actually costs to register with the state and the IRS. So the total package is about $1,800, and it is the best value. There are other organizations that do that. I don't think anybody's as good as Maryland Nonprofits in how they walk you through that process and make their attorneys available to you. Once you're established, you can, we do have a list of law firms and corporations that will provide, through an application process, a pro bono attorney. You usually have to be a little more established, and but we can provide some resources for you. Yeah.
When I first set up my charity, would I need to set up the kind of employee stroke volunteer retirement plan? I think it's a 401(b) or something like that for nonprofit workers. Do they expect you to hurry up and set up the retirement plan, or do they say, oh, wait 2 years?
No. And that has to be funded. I think that's a question for later down the line, but you know, for you to be able to fund that, I think you need to have some established time behind you, but I'll leave that to your subject experts. But what we can do is we can put you in touch. When you get your notes back from us, we will give you the contact for Maryland Nonprofits, and one of the attorneys will have a complimentary call with you, and you can go through explaining what you're trying to do, and they can answer some of those questions that are specific to the startup or the establishment of the business.
When a charity wants to work with, let's say, a department store or any place where people are going to be shopping a lot, like Amazon or Walmart, maybe Panda Express, does it take a couple of years of being a charity before you can get a portion of the sales transaction as a donation to your charity?
So I think, Angela, that usually all of this is really based on relationships. It is, and it really actually comes down to who you've talked to, who you can build a relationship, even what you've talked about of, you know, approaching philanthropists. Well, you need to know exactly who are the potential philanthropists and how you could gain access to them, because they don't just pick up their phone or respond to email that's there. And I think, you know, in listening to you, I think part of what would be helpful is more of this. You've talked a lot about the structural components, and I may be a little on the outside of this, but getting all those structural things in process, the IRS, the incorporation, hiring people, accounting, that's all secondary. The primary question is really, how are you talking about the work that you're actually doing, and how do you help someone understand that? Because a lot of people understand what it takes to run a business. The challenge here is people need to understand, why would I connect with you? Whether I'm a Panda Express, a philanthropist, what is it about what you're envisioning and the body of work that you directly want to do with women, and how you're talking about that? And Min's actually he's the storyteller one, and I don't know if he's got some thoughts on sort of helpfulness around that.
Well, I was just like rereading the book. That's my favorite book that I always recommend book for people to do. And I love that, you know, how you incorporate, you know, both nonprofit and the business side, because that's exactly what I share with Kim, what I do on the side, because money has to come in somehow, right? And then create a win-win for everyone, including all our partners and then other people. So the more option that we have, the better. And one thing I want to just caution is, like, you know, really hone in on what you your unique value proposition is. And this is I run to grab it from outside my bookshelf. Especially since you have a a business, and also think of nonprofit like a business as well. This is called $100 startup. So it's clearly will help you to really crystallize on who you are as an organization and what you offer to people. And the idea is just whatever you can provide, you sell that, you can make money from it. You do that first, and then you build the base, you build the support, and then you continue to grow further, right? And then all the storytelling, who you are and what you believe in, continue to work on that to really explain clearly who you are and what you do and why what you do really matters, right? Focus on the why, the emotional aspect of it. And this book will give you a structure for it. I use this book for my own startup as well. So, and then it's called $100 startup. So it will help you to reinvent the way you do business and simplify it, right? Like as much simplicity is better. And then so that's something that I would recommend. But do you have any questions for me in terms of communication and marketing on top of what I just shared with you?
I'm a big fan of marketing, advertising, and sales. A lot of people don't like those types of things, but I've always enjoyed it. And I'm a big believer in direct mail and kind of catalogs and brochures. So I know that will come down the line. I do have a list of fundraisers that are very good that I can use to raise money. And I know that it's important to have good marketing firms and to know how much they're supposed to be charging you as a nonprofit. So what I'll probably do is I'll start out financing the charity myself, making sure that you're working probably 2 jobs because you want to be committed to make sure that you put a lot of investment into your charity. You're the one who's starting it. And then as you kind of pay your experts and the experts go through the protocols, it's much easier to then start fundraising from others. So what is the actual name of your marketing agency?
So it's called PSK Creative. And one thing I want to caution you just a little bit is working 2 or 3 jobs is actually, I work 80 to 100 hours every week. So I understand the passion and things like that. And something that you want to be cautious is like health is also important, because without health, you cannot really do what you do effectively. So just be mindful of that. And then especially, like I'm also a big believer in you don't have to do so many things to achieve what you need to do, as long as you have a clear pictures of what you want to do. Direct mail actually a really good thing. It costs a lot though. it costs so much money, and I know how, because I do that for our clients too. And the most effective marketing is referral, right? Like once people understand you, let's just say we have, right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 people in here in this panel, right? If you once we really understand you and we like you, and then we want to help you, let's just say like that is the best case, right? Everyone you meet will be able to take what you have and then share that with other people. That is the most effective way you can do, and then the cheapest way that you can do in terms of marketing. And one thing that I think I learned over the year is provide a real value to whoever you interact with, whether it's through the business or the nonprofit. I think that would be coming really handy for you. And don't rely too much on agency. Especially the reason why I do what I do is because other agency charge an arm and leg for like nonprofit, and I'm like, why would you pay like $50,000 a video like that, right? And that's paying me, because that money can go into the staff and things like that. So that's when I'm kind of an anti-agency in a way. I tell them to focus on what really matter, and what really matter from you at this stage. It really honing into who you are and communicate who you are and what your value is really well, and then establish the structure that you have using the book. Like there's so many books about business and things like that, but I really recommend the $100 startup because they're so practical and it's fun to read. So I think you have a good time reading that book.
Thank you for that information. That is really very important to understand the importance of referrals and making sure that anytime you're a charity and you're paying experts and specialists, don't overpay. But also, if you're starting a business, try to be efficient with your expenditures, your money. You want to be very careful when you're a startup. So that's great. Mhm. Yeah. What's a
Angela,
good way?
well,
I was just gonna
I
ask a
would,
quick question.
okay.
Go ahead, sir. I'll be happy to say my question.
That's okay, because I just wanted to respond to the personal investment piece that you're talking about, and to really give a word of caution and what we often experience, which is the high paying people, the people that they're going to tell you all sorts of stories. At the end of the day, the people you're really interested in are actually the ones that are willing to invest time, energy, and money at the front end. So really thinking before you invest everything in building something out, it's actually a really good idea to talk to people who care about what you're doing. Tapping the networks, just as Min was saying, that already exist, that you already know, asking them their opinions of it, and as well as whether they are willing to invest, because the worst thing that could happen is you put all this personal funds in and something happens that people just aren't interested in it, and then you've built up this structure. So it's almost like testing the waters, that if there are people who genuinely care and are passionate and share, they will help contribute early on. They become partners early on, and really encourage you to start that set of conversations to see who else is invested in starting it up, because then they're going to be invested in keeping it going. That's there, and you'll get a lot of really rich feedback around what people are really looking for, as opposed to the hypotheticals around how much you could make here, how much you could make there. You'll really get a sense, oh, people are willing to give me $5 or people are willing to give me $5,000. But until you've really talked to them, it's all just theoretical. And just for your own security, making sure that you're not, A, having to work too many hours like Min is saying, or B, invest your own personal funds in something that eventually has to become not your own personal funds. So we start there rather than trying to play catch up.
Sometimes if you can't get traction in the United States, I've been overseas, what you'll find is women in Saudi Arabia and Iran have to work at home, and India too, because of cultural reasons and historic reasons. So if you go to those communities, they are very big on charity anyway. And you say to them, oh, well, we'll make sure that women are working at home in a culturally appropriate way. They're more likely to give you money. So sometimes your vision is, oh, I'll help my neighbor down the street. But if there's no interest or understanding, you have to go to the easy community that already does that. So your vision may change from what you thought it was going to be.
Angela, I want to come back to what Justin mentioned in terms of connecting with others related to moving forward, in terms of both on a personal level and on a business level, because you're creating both a for-profit and a nonprofit. Even with that nonprofit, that's also a business. Are there others that you started to talk to who either run job training centers? You mentioned that you're in the same space as some other groups. Are there others that you know who either own those job training centers, run them as a for-profit, run them as a nonprofit, and who you could connect with in that space in terms of their legal structure, in terms of their plan, their funding model, in terms of boards? There's a lot of moving parts here. Have you had conversations with those individuals, and what wisdom or nuggets have they shared with you?
I've talked to a lot of job training centers, and I did graduate from a job training center. I know job training centers in different states and Canada. And the biggest thing you need to know about job training centers is you have to figure out, is it going to be a nonprofit charity? Is it going to be a capitalist for-profit business? you can't have confusion about the actual job training center, the building, the place where the ladies will be learning and getting trained. You got to make up your mind and stick to it. And you have to know what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and set up the structure legally and follow the law. That's what I've learned from a lot of them. They're very easy to work with, but they need you to do your part. You don't just want to tell them your dream and expect them to do all the work. So,
And credit to you for recognizing and seeing before you get started that there's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort put into that. When you were talking to these folks who were running the job training centers, were they set up as for-profits, as nonprofits? How are they set up? And then from a funding standpoint, how are they funded?
most of the job training centers that I've spoken to that are not colleges and universities are definitely for profit. They charge a lot of money. They maximize what they charge students. Students sometimes save for months or years just to afford the class. Depending upon their life situation, they may not complete it. And these job training centers have to focus on being profitable and financially viable. And that's been my experience. A lot of charities these days can't sustain themselves unless they're supported by a sister company or a separate wing that is a capitalist company. They have to think about money long before they ever get in operating mode. That's just the experience that I've had speaking to the job training centers. They have to charge a lot of money. They have to make a lot of money. They don't give a lot of discounts and coupons. And it's a traditional business, but it's kind of like a luxury business too, because it's not a college or university in a lot of cases. It's a luxury. And if you really want what they're offering, you have to pay top dollar.
Angela, where are you located?
I am in Woodbridge, Virginia, Prince William County, just underneath Fairfax County. I've been in Virginia a very long time. I used to be in Greenbelt, Maryland, I think when I was about 10 years old. So
Fabulous. Have you approached the Women's Business Center in Northern Virginia? Have you connected with them yet?
I did not speak to the Women's Business Center on the phone, but I did speak to the Community Business Partnership. And I know the one in Virginia and I know the one in Delaware. So that's been my experience with that. And they're very good, but they're very tough on you. They're like the Marine boot camp. They expect you to do it. If they need to tell you off, they will tell you off. So they're very tough.
Is that a CDFI? Is that a Community Development Financial Institution?
Yes, and they work with the Small Business Administration to give you a micro loan.
Yep.
And a Bank of America, they just said, okay, well, we'll do the micro loan with the SBA as well. So when you get a little bit of money, there's an accelerator in Richmond that doesn't take equity. When you get that initial money, you have to run to Bank of America in whatever state you're in and kind of beg for the money because that's what you need. You need that second loan. You can't just survive on one loan.
Yeah, those are, yeah, they'll back up the for-profit loan. So, okay, so you've talked with them and you're right, they're very good in terms of, they've worked with you on a business plan and a financial plan?
What I did was I have mentors with SCORE. I have basically two of them, SCORE.org. They're all over America, as you all know. And they had me print out this so-called business plan. I have it in storage. I haven't written it up yet. You can actually have people help you write up your business plan if you just need a little bit of guidance and you want to make sure that it looks fantastic. They can help you write up your pitch, whether it's the elevator pitch or the long drawn out one. So it's not that hard to do once you know that you're supposed to be doing that. So.
Yep, and they've helped you with the financials. Yeah.
The interesting thing about SCORE, they're not really allowed to talk about the funding and financing and loans and grants. because it's a little bit controversial. They want to share their life wisdom with you as entrepreneurs, and they want you to use Google to find loans and grants. So I guess for legal reasons, they're not allowed to say, hey, this is the source of money. So, you know.
Well, the piece on less loans and grants, then you have to, every business has to understand how to present their current financials, their current financial statements, as well as their pro formas, which are the predictions of the future. How much money is it going to take to do whatever it is you want to do? And how, you know, where are you going to get that money? How is that going to come in, and how do the two balance so that you can achieve things? So that's more what I was referring to, is setting up your financial statements. Has somebody helped you with that?
Not yet, but I do have a list of just tons of loans and accelerators and incubators. I'm probably going to start with Richmond. They're going to give you a so-called loan, or it could be a grant of $20,000 where they don't take your equity.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, you have to run to Bank of America and get your SBA micro loan. And once you finish with the micro loan, the SBA will give you a huge loan. It could be $2 million or $5 million. Business, you have to just go that extra mile. I know in New York, they're desperate for business, so they'll give you $1 million and no taxes. But you know, you never know what you'll end up doing. In Delaware, you have C corp, so you have to keep an open mind. But I'm lucky. I compiled a list of places to get money for businesses and charities, so that's good.
Okay. Well, you will want to work with something. Money does not come for free. Ever. And you will have to show financial statements because they're not always grants. They are loans, and so they have to be paid back. And that's what both the CDFIs and the banks, they want to know that you will have capacity to pay back any loan. You should be able to work with your Square mentors on presenting your financials. Not the same as, you know, what is available out there, but presenting your financials. There is a women's business center in Northern Virginia. It may be called the Northern Virginia Women's Business Center. I haven't looked it up lately, but you can Google it, find it. There may be one a little closer to you as well. Those are often really good places to get that kind of support. Very similar to the SBDC Small Business Development Centers. I happen to like working as a woman. I like working with the women business centers because they generally have female teachers, and they just think about these things in ways that make a lot of sense, particularly because you're going to be working with a female population.
Oh, all right. And I'm glad I was able to see them basically on the Fairfax County website. They're in Springfield and Fairfax, so I do know about them. They are fantastic, and it's good to go down there. The first thing you're really going to do to get your car moving is you have to work a job in order to finance everything, even just the ability to go to the bank. So there's a lot of jobs out there, and working minimum wage or $15 an hour, it's a good thing, because when you take that little small amount of money and you put it into something that's going to grow, it becomes a lot. One of the things I was going to ask you all is, when you're dealing with lawyers, what do you do to make sure that the lawyer is legit, that they're not an unethical lawyer that's going to do the wrong thing?
Generally referrals, talking to people who've done similar work, who've worked with folks, people that you trust. Also knowing what those parameters are on your end. What does ethical mean to you, and being really active in the interviewing. And it's true of any professional, not just an attorney. I think really getting a sense of, are they being responsive to you? Are they saying the things that are important to you, or are they just pitching or selling you? And again, I think there are multiple layers, Angela, for, you know, certainly some of the structural pieces that you're talking about are more complicated. Some of them are pretty also straightforward, as Kim said. You know, the actual process of legally establishing a nonprofit is actually quite easy. It is not complicated. It doesn't require a high-priced attorney. And if you're paying a high-priced attorney, they're paying you for services that are unnecessarily expensive. On the for business side or for-profit side, I can't speak to that because there's a lot more involved in that. But yeah, it's a lot of talking to folks. And I think, Angela, again, the more you're talking to people that are really doing the kind of work, so that, you know, that idea of that business plan, that organizational design, that you can really articulate it and have concrete things to show people, you know, this is what a day of work would look like. This is the actual resources that we need. These are the people that I've talked to who have committed financially. Those pieces are going to be really, really important. And I really do encourage you to have those conversations before worrying about the professionals and the structure, and that real sense of, and again, I think some of what Min was talking about, of just getting a sense of what this organization is, its purpose in the community, who's going to benefit from that, and really having those conversations. Just like you said, if this is international, you need to be having conversations with those potential people you're working with, somehow connecting with them to really make sure that you're envisioning something that actually works for, just as you said, to be culturally competent, that's there. And so you really are at that moment of going from the well thought out hypothetical frame to now really vetting that and talking to people to say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is what I think it would look like. These are the resources, the specific resources that I need. You know, how does that mesh with what you would want if you were a client, or if you were an employee or a funder, any one of those types of people?
I'll be speaking with local philanthropists through the different, you know, churches and houses of worship and the universities, the prestigious universities. And they have ways for you to reach out to them through these philanthropy magazines. There's also family offices and family foundations that are a big deal, and you can reach out to those people. And there's pledges.com. They can be one of your fiscal sponsors for a short period of time, but they don't have to be. They let you do a community-based fundraiser in your local area, and then they let you meet some billionaires who will match what you raise. So you do have options, and it's not that hard to kind of figure out where the people are kind of hiding who get involved with charity stuff. So I don't really have that many more questions. I'm looking forward to looking at the recording and just kind of memorizing what I need to know, and just doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing in order to get things going, because there are people there that need a lot of help. So you want to get set up to start helping people.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you to all the panelists. I think this was helpful to you. You will get a copy of the recording within a couple of days once it's downloaded. Lily will send that to you, and then some critical notes, you know, that she's taking today, and we'll send you some links to some further resources. You will have access to a navigator for an hour or two in order to follow up. So we'll put you in touch with the most appropriate person so that you have a little bit more time. And I hope this is helpful to you, and we wish you luck on moving forward. Keep in touch with us. We'll have some Nonprofit Village resources for you as well.
I'll probably come into the office and everything, and I like y'all's website a lot. So I'm going to keep on using you guys as a resource. Thank you for giving me a lot of really good information today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we appreciate the time with you. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch in the next